My name's Sasha Pete, and I'm joined by a fantastic individual, a Sydney boy who ended up playing at the highest possible level in this country and overseas. He was a prolific goal scorer, none other than the great Joe Caleta. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you, Sash. Thank you very much.
So tell us, how did you fall in love with our great game?
Well, I'd like to tell you that I was born with the football on my feet, and there was a great love for it at an early age. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case with me. I grew up in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, predominantly rugby league, area. It was just all rugby league, and I started playing rugby league at the age of 5, and I played right through to the age of 13. But I also played rugby league at high school, right through high school. So football didn't come to me until a later stage. So it was quite a transition from constantly playing rugby league to all of a sudden playing, football. Back in the days, it was pretty tough too, Sash. It wasn't even called football or soccer; it was called wogball. If you played wog ball, it was like you're an outcast, and we grew up in Botany, played at Borley Oval, where Johnny Warren actually grew up, and they've got a plaque there called the Johnny Warren Oval plaque. And even thinking about Johnny, how he grew up in those days playing soccer or football, it would have been so tough for him, So I used to think I had so much respect for him in that regards. Because it was tough playing football in that time, in that era.
But so rugby's such a tough game and taxing on the body, and I think you took something later into your football because you were quite burly up top when you played, so you were really quick to the ball and you were quite strong on the ball. Do you think the basis of your earlier upbringing through rugby helped in that instance?
I think it helped dramatically. I mean, for me, it's all about your mindset. And growing up, I grew up with people like Craig Salvatore, who captained the Roosters. Mario Fennick did live down the street. He was the captain of the Rabbitohs. So their mentality was, really, their mindset was really strong with sport. And I think that's what I got out of rugby league. Just being persistent with it, being a strong mindset, always trying to succeed, and I think that was what I've transferred over from rugby league to football.
Okay, so how did you obviously move away from rugby and then gravitate to the round ball?
So what happened was. I was playing in the local park at Borley, I was telling you before, and my mother and father said, "Oh, we want to come and watch. We want to watch you play." And I thought, "Great, they're going to come and watch me play. They're going to be so impressed." And they both turned up and watched. And I was playing, and I was having a great game. I remember thinking, this is going to be great." 10 minutes into the game, I look over and I see my mother walking away towards walking out through the park, going towards home. And I thought, this is not a good sign. So anyway, the game finished and I went home. I remember I had a massive lump on my forehead, and my father just coming up to me and saying, "That's it, you're not playing anymore. If you want, you can play football." And that's it. So he'd take me to the Sydney Croatia games.
Mm-hmm.
He thought this would be a great idea to get me involved with football. I'd go and watch the games. And I remember going to the games. There was a few local boys that were Croatian as well, and they'd go to the games with us, and the atmosphere was unbelievable. I remember the first time I went, and Greg Smith was the captain of Sydney Croatia back then, and Adi Aboni was playing as a striker, and then Maurice Sullivan was the flying Frenchman on the wing. And I just remember feeling the buzz. It was just like, the atmosphere. You could have 5,000 people watching, and it felt like 100,000 people. And I fell in love with it straight away, just the atmosphere of it. And I remember turning to my mate, who was Croatian. His name's Bugsy, and as his nickname. He's actually David Drulich's brother-in-law. His name's Boro, And I remember saying to him, "Man, I've got to play football."
Mm.
I said, "You got to show me the ropes," because he was already playing football. I said, "Show me how to play. What's the rules?" He said, "Tell me about the offsides." And I said, "Where do you think I should play? What position?" He said, "Oh, you're quick, so you should play up front. You got a good shot." And I said, "Okay, I'm in." And he said, "Okay, well, there's the South American boys from the school formed a team." And he said, "Well, we'll play there." I said, "Okay, no problems, but don't tell anyone at school." I said, "Don't let them know that I'm playing football."
Mm.
So it was a big secret. Anyway, we ended up winning the competition. It was a church's comp. It was just, yeah. So we ended up winning the competition, and you wouldn't believe it. We got selected for the church's comp New South Wales team. And the coach turns up to the school, because there was 5 of us in the New South Wales team. He turns up to the school to announce the players in front of the whole school.
Mm.
So all these rugby league heads are looking at me. I just copped an absolute drumming from these boys. And but it was they accepted it. They thought that was unreal.
Okay.
At the end of the day, to be able to play 2 sports. And then I said the year after, to my father, "I'll go play for Sydney, Croatia. Let me have a run with them."
Mm.
So we ended up trialing. It was under 14s with Sydney, Croatia, and Morris Sullivan was the coach, who was the winger for Sydney, Croatia. And I'll never forget it. The boys were big back then. Like I was still tiny, but I was always quick. And Morris was telling my father at the end of the training session, he says, "Oh, he's very raw, but he has a lot of pace." He said, "Maybe I can work with him." And that was my introduction to playing, elite level of football.
There would have been something proud that, from the original walking away, watching a rugby game, there would have been a proud moment. Obviously, you're a son of migrant parents who, in their home, would want to see the round ball being played, and playing for Sydney, Croatia, and the chant of Croatia, in the stadium later on. For you to be selected in that side would have been a proud moment for your family. How did that transpire from the original walking away, your mum seeing you walk away from a rugby game, to making your senior debut?
Well, I mean, it was very proud. I mean, for them, obviously with the Croatian heritage, and they never ever thought that I would play football. They thought, he's right into his rugby. It's not going to happen. But yeah, it was a very, very proud moment for them. And my mother went to every game. Wow. She'd be at every game. So for me, that made me even more happier too, that she was, because she never ever watched me play rugby league except for that one time.
Yeah.
So that was it was a proud moment for me, and a proud moment for her as well. So,
how old were you when you made your senior debut?
So I'll never forget. It was in the era when Vedran Rožić came to Sydney, Croatia, and prior to that, in the state league, a lot of the Croatian boys would be, coming up through the ranks, through the youth system, playing in first grade. So 90% of the players were Croatian background. But when Vedran came, he brought a lot of overseas players. Ante Ramora, there was Željko Jurin, there was Ivan Petković, Dragicevic's brothers. So he brought a lot of talent from overseas, and it was quite difficult to get any of the players that were playing in the youth coming up through the system. But I was fortunate enough to come up through. I think I was the only one that came through during that period. And my debut was against Sydney City. And I tell you what an introduction that was.
Yeah, glamour side of the time. Yeah,
it was an introduction and a half. I never forget it. It was at Marksfield, and they had Jerry Gomez, Rocky O'Connor. Steve O'Connor was playing at the back. He was tough as nails. It was just Joey Watson. And I remember coming on, and I was petrified. And I remember my first touch. The ball came to me. My first touch was a bad touch, but it ended up nutmegging Joey Watson.
Okay.
It ended up being good. And I went around him, and I felt like he was Joey Watson screaming at me, "You're telling me off," and and so that was my introduction to first grade.
Yeah, so very interesting story. You've only been playing, less than 4 years, and now you're playing at the highest level in the country. So great signs to go onwards and upwards. And you stayed at Croatia. You're not old enough to vote yet, but you stayed at Croatia for a couple of years.
Yeah.
What were your memories in those early years?
Oh, look, I learned so much in those early years at Sydney Croatia. I mean, we had Graham Arnold playing there, and Jimmy Patikas came there. I mean, I was carpooling with Jimmy Patikas.
Okay.
It was fun times. He was an absolute character, and he was someone that I always looked up to. And even today, I see Jimmy, he'd be on our way to the game, and he'd say, "Pull over," and I'd say, "What for?" And he goes, "I've got to collect some money from the TAB." And I'd say, "Oh, okay, no worries," So he was just a character, and I learned a lot from these guys, playing football. Arnie was, he was a motivator for all the boys as well. His mental game was really, really good. I mean, he motivated everyone, and so you learn a lot. Zharkov, I mean, far out. The things that he used to do on the ball, and just at training and being in these guys' presence was like unbelievable.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, you had, Wally Chavor. He was right back, and I was playing right wing at times. And he gave me so much encouragement, so much great advice. So yeah, it was great. It was great. I absolutely loved it there. It was great.
And you find a way across to under Frank Arrock with St. George. So how did you make that move across?
So what happened was I was frustrated sitting on the bench. As you can imagine, it was a top team, very hard to break into. And I just thought I was just wasting my time. At a young age, I wanted to play. And I had my last year of studies. I was an architectural draftsman, and I was doing my last year of studies. I rang Frank. Frank said, "Yeah, come on board." And St. George was around the corner from where I lived.
Okay.
So it was, and I knew it was going to be a hard year for me with football, especially with the studies. And Sydney United was an hour's drive, so it was a long drive, and I remember leaving. I remember telling the club that I was leaving, and I was so upset. And Vedran Rožić came up to me and he said, "What are you doing? You're not gonna make it. You leave this club, you're not gonna make it." And I remember I had to pay $2,000 out of my pocket for the transfer. Yeah. And I said to him, I've got $2,000 that I will make it. So
wow.
I wanted to succeed. I wanted to.
I mean, common occurrence in that time where they put a price for the transfer. But St. George didn't pay it. You paid out your own transfer.
Yeah, I paid $2,000 back then.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I remember Frank saying to me, we train 4 days a week. I told Frank about my situation. He said, "Well, you're going to have to work harder." And in that time, he was bringing up a lot of young players.
Yep.
There was Zoran Ilic, there was Pedro Ricoj, Grabevski. I mean, a lot of young talent. Andy Koska.
Yep.
So he was nurturing these guys too. So, and it was tough to break into that squad as well. They ended up winning the final against Apia that year. Yes. So it was a fantastic year that year.
Yes.
And I was probably blessed to be part of that, even though I didn't have too much game time that year. But it was good times. Yeah,
always good to be around a team that gets success, because then what it takes to execute on that. And so then you come south of the border and start, what I can remember, you start becoming prolific at the Knights, and so you spend a number of years there at Melbourne, Croatia. So tell us, how did that transpire? What sort of pulled you away from Sydney and to Melbourne?
So I got a phone call from the president of Melbourne Knights, Joe Juzel.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, look, we want to rebuild a team. We'd like you to come over. We heard a lot of good things about you from Sydney, Croatia.
Mm-hmm.
Would you want to come over? Mm-hmm. And I said, yeah. I said, sure, no problems, And
simple as that.
Yeah. Simple as that. As soon as the offer came, I said, I'll take it. It's another, there's another Croatian club.
Yep.
And my mother used to actually watch Melbourne Croatia on TV all the time.
Mm-hmm.
When Gojovic was playing, all those days, Robbie Markovac. Yep. I mean, she used to love Melbourne Knights. So it was an easy choice for me.
Yes.
I said, yeah, not a problem. And I remember flying over to Melbourne and I had to meet up. I went on my own and I had to meet up with the board, the Melbourne Knights board. And I meet Joe Juzel for the first time. Joe Juzel, when you look at him, you would think he'd just come out of one of those mafia movies,
yes.
The Godfather.
Yep.
He's a big guy. He had these dark glasses and he was a scary looking character. Yes. And I remember thinking, oh, geez, what have I got myself into? I better play well here.
Yes.
And so he took me in with open arms. I was supposed to find a place to stay, but he said, look, I want you to stay with my family. He took me in. I was supposed to be there only for a week, and I ended up staying there for about 4 months.
Wow.
Yeah, and I kept asking him, when am I moving out? I've got to,
Yep.
But it was good. The family were unbelievable.
Yep.
And it was like I just slotted in so easy.
Okay.
They made the transition so easy for me.
Who are some of the characters in that Melbourne Knights side?
So when I got there, Ian Wallace was the coach. I don't know if you remember Ian Wallace, the first $1 million player. Yeah, he was the coach. He had just broken his leg. He was supposed to be a player coach, and I got there, and it was actually I was overawed with the players that they had. They had Robbie Dunn, Jeff Oliver in goals. They had Alan Davidson,
yes,
Joe Bishkic. They had Branko Milosevic. The players they had was unbelievable, but they were struggling. They were in relegation zone, and I remember thinking I couldn't even believe that they were in a relegation zone. And I remember when I got there. Ian Wallace was talking to Robbie Dunn, and if it wasn't for Robbie Dunn actually put a good word in for me. He said, you should take the kid, And I remember Ian Wallace was in two minds. But I remember him asking me, what position do you play? And I did my homework. I knew who the right winger was. It was Joe Bishkic. And the first thing I said to him was, I play on the left. I'm a left winger. I never played left wing in my life. But I knew there was no way I was getting that right wing position.
Yeah.
And I remember training, I was just using my left foot, just trying to work on my left foot.
Yep.
And just to try and get my confidence on the left side. So that's how that sort of fell in.
Fantastic. And the obviously you're now traveling. Who was your roomie at that time?
So there was a big transition in the year after. So all the players, like they did a massive clean out.
Clean out, yes.
Yeah. So we got players like Andrew Marth came in.
Yep.
Ivan Kelic.
Yep.
So these, and then I remember we played at the stadium. We were training at the stadium. I remember one time, Francis Awaratifi walks in, and he was this tall, lean, athletic-looking guy. And he walks into the dressing room. This is at the stadium, and they had all the athletes out there running. And he says, he walks in, and Andrew Marth goes, "Oh, mate, you looking for the athletes? They're outside." He goes, "This is the footballers in here." And he goes, "No, I'm looking for the footballers," with his English accent. So he joined in, and so it was all new faces.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, we gelled so well. We gelled really well. I mean, it was almost straight away. We had the old heads like George Hanna,
mm-hmm.
Davo, and then we had the new guys coming in, and it was like a great blend. And it just everything fell into place.
And so you're now getting more game time. You're part of you're well and truly part of an 11, and being relied upon to contribute and score goals. What were the greatest tussles? Who was the opposition that you thought, okay, this is going to be a big game, the crowd's going to be on our side and the opposition's going to be quite fierce as well?
Without a doubt, it's South Melbourne. They were our rivals. It was always great competition. Even with the crowds, it was massive. There was a big crowd every time we played them. Mm-hmm. But in terms of playing teams, I think Adelaide City was always a tough one. That was always great games, and it was always a fight. So they were another team that was really good to play against. That was tough. So from what I understand, were you one of the boys in the dressing room that was one of the characters? Were you live up? Or you quite quiet, or no? You were trying to cause a bit of a ruckus in there. I was probably like game time. I was quiet, kept to myself, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But usually I was like outspoken and mucking around a little bit with the boys. But I think. But we had a fair few characters in the team. Theo Salamides, he was always a laugh. He was always a laugh. So, yeah. And
I'm sure Andrew Martha would have been quite a character in the dressing room as well.
Yeah, 100%. Stabber was always, laughing and joking and banter. There was always banter with Stabber. So. And he was actually one of the greatest leaders that I've played with. He was a real leader.
Yeah.
As well.
And you were there till 91. Is it 91? Yeah, there at Croatia and Melbourne, Croatia, and then you have an opportunity to head up overseas. So how did that transpire? What gave the opportunity to pick your bags and try your luck overseas?
Yeah, it was towards the end of the 91 season. Eddie Krinčević's team, FC Liège, were looking for a player, a winger. And it was actually the time when we played in the finals. We were playing our finals. Mm-hmm. And I got a call up to go there straight after the grand final. So I went to Liège, and as I got there, the coach got sacked.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So he got sacked. New coach comes in. He brought all these new players in.
Okay.
So anyway, but while I was there, I trialled with. I went to VfB Stuttgart.
Okay.
So Christoph Daum was the coach then, and I remember going there, and I was supposed to be there for two days, a 2-day trial, and I ended up staying 4 or 5 weeks.
Okay, that would have been a good experience.
That was an unbelievable experience. I mean, they had players like Matthias Sammer, who was the captain of the German team.
Yeah.
Fritz Walter, he was a dynamic striker. He was scoring left, right, and centre. Some of the players there were unbelievable. So it was quite overwhelming to be a part of that squad there for 4 or 5 weeks.
But just to get the feel of what like top flight football feels like in the and not speaking the language, maybe I don't know how good your German is, but I mean just trying to understand and fit in, and not being the center of attention in a team, but you're on the out and you've got to try and make a side, and just the quality of difference. How did you find that whole experience of just trying to be up to their level?
Yeah, it was difficult. I mean, I remember when I walked in, and you walk into the dressing room, and you see the ice baths there, and everything's set up professionally. And the guy comes out and he brings your clothes, your tracksuit, your top, your shorts and socks, and I'm thinking, wow, this is like unbelievable. Everything's pressed, and it's all nice and neat. And then that aura
Yes.
was like, it was just a different level. It was just unbelievable. And then you'd run out on the field and everyone would line up and shake Christoph Daum's hand. That was like a,
ritual.
Yeah, like, and look, and I got there and I was, we just finished playing our grand final and I was extremely fit.
Yep.
I was a left-sided wing back. So I was quite fit at the time. And I remember they were just finishing up their pre-season. They were just towards the end of it. And I was still doing some pre-season stuff. And I remember I was struggling. I was absolutely struggling. And there was one guy there from America. His name was Alex. And I said, mate, I'm struggling with this. I said, is this normal? And he goes, oh, mate, we're tapering down. We're going towards the end of our pre-season. He said, you should have been here a few weeks ago. He goes, you would have died.
Yes.
So the level of intensity was just, you can see why they are the way they are and what level they're at because of the training and the professionalism that they were enduring during that time,
And you sort of make your way over to Antwerp as so you've got an agent or somebody who's saying, listen.
So yeah, what happened was I was sitting down and I was with the agent and Christoph Daum came to sit with us and we had a talk about what his thoughts were. And he was willing to sign me up with VfB Stuttgart, but loan me out to Stuttgart Kickers, which is the sister club in the second division. And I thought this is a great deal. I thought that's a no-brainer. But the agent had other ideas. He wanted me to go and play in Belgium. He said, okay, if he doesn't play here, maybe we'll just take him to Belgium in first division. For some reason, he wanted me to play first division. So I went to Antwerp. He took me to Antwerp. I was there for, I think it was about 8 months. But they had about 12 or 13 foreign players on their books. And only 3
you could only field a couple each game?
Only 3 could play. George Kolska was there, from Australia. He was playing there as well. But he was, he had a girlfriend there. He was settled. So he was happy with where he was. I didn't get any game time there. It was really tough. And I remember it was probably the toughest time in football terms for me. It was I had no family network there. I was on my own. I remember always trying to catch up with the other players that were there. Zatkar and Basic, Paul Ocon. I'd be ringing them up all the time, trying to catch up with them.
Just to hear another Aussie voice, right?
So, and I remember watching Paul Ocon had a trial game against Hajduk, and so I went and watched the game. And after the game, we were in the car park, and I was with Paul Ocon and Mario Stanic, who was playing international football for Croatia at the time. And then the Hajduk bus was there, and you wouldn't believe it. Vedran Rožić comes out.
Oh wow!
And he couldn't believe I was there. So he was freaking out, and he goes, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just here at Antwerp." And so it was good catching up with him as well. But,
did you have any comment about the previous $2,000, or did you just say hi? How's it going? Yeah.
He actually asked me to go and play with Hajduk as well. He said,
"Great."
He said,
"That's a great compliment, right?" So, and why didn't you take up that offer?
I asked him. I said, "Well, what are you going to offer me if I go there?" And he said, "Mate, we've got accommodation for you at the stadium." I said, "What about money?" He goes, "Oh, look, don't worry about money. We don't have much money, but you're in the European window." And it sounded great, but at that stage, I was like, I think I wanted to go home.
Okay, that's tough, but you would have learned something. So it's when you experience sort of that dark night of the soul, and where you're alone and not a lot of friends, and you're yearning to hear another Aussie voice, you would have learned a lot of other things. So resilience, grit, learning how to be a professional by yourself. Do you think that this carried on later in your life? Some of the lessons that you learned, your 9 months there at Antwerp, and you knew probably logically that these other, 5 or 6 foreigners, they're ahead of me, maybe, right? Where you were at your football. Did you take those things away from that 9 months into later on in your life?
To be honest, Sash, I think resilience is something that I had in an early age.
Yes.
I always found myself in the deep end trying to, keep afloat. But that really tested my boundaries in Europe. And it did. It really did. Like you said, I had to show grit and determination and try and break through. And it would either broke me or made me stronger. And I think it made me stronger because I wanted to get back to Australia and prove myself again. So that's why I wanted to get back to Australia and start again fresh.
And an old stomping ground. So Manfred Schaefer's.
I got approached. I got phone calls from a coach called Mladen Brankovic.
Okay.
And he coached in Rijeka in Croatia, and Sydney United or Sydney Croatia brought him over to coach that year, and he was trying to get me back that year, and I decided to go back there. So he persuaded me to come back, but I also wanted to come back to start to prove a point again and to get my game back on track again. So I went back, but he didn't last the season.
Okay.
He lasted half the season, and Manfred Schaefer took over after that.
Okay, so what was your relationship like with him?
It was a tough one with Manfred because Manfred was old school. He was, he was more of for me, he was just a trainer, and I found it difficult with him. And Manfred, if he liked you, he liked you. If he didn't, he didn't.
Yes.
And he had his players, and he made it clear the players that he liked. He had his favourites, and I just didn't fit in. I didn't fit in that year with him, and I decided to go to Sydney Olympic after that. Okay,
so that another quality side. So who were some of your teammates at Sydney Olympic? So we're talking about around 94, is that?
94, 94. So you had, it was great because Ivan Kelic was there that year.
Yes, so that would have been another familiar face, obviously, from your days in Melbourne.
Yeah, Branko Milosevic was there.
Yep.
We had Andy Bennell,
tough as nails.
Tough as nails, one of the best blokes that you could never meet. Great guy. So it was a really good side. The unfortunate thing, Andy was injured a lot that year, but we still, Ironside was there.
Yeah, Robbie Ironside, yeah.
So, we had a good side. It was good. It was a great year. We had Harry Michaels as our president.
Yes.
And he was
somebody who's given a lot to this game. And to that club and to football probably doesn't get talked about enough, what he's done for football in this country. So if you could touch on what your interactions were with Harry Michaels.
Look, Harry was he was a players' president. He really looked after the players, and like you said, he did so much for this for football in this country. Behind the scenes, and he was so passionate, and that passion, you felt that passion, and you wanted to, you really wanted to play for him. That's the type of character he was. He was just a lovable guy. He still is. I still see him now and then, and he's just someone that you really, really want to play for. And he helped me a lot. He helped me a lot that year too. He was fantastic.
Okay, so you want to elaborate how he?
Well, I got an offer to go to Malaysia that year.
Okay.
It was towards the end of the year. The season hadn't finished, and we were actually we were trying to make the finals. We were in the top 5. So the call came in for me to go to Malaysia to play for Perak.
Yes.
I asked Harry to help me out, and he helped me out a lot. I mean, the board weren't happy about me leaving. And Harry, being Harry, and he wants to
gave you the release,
and it was he helped me a lot to go over there. Without him, I wouldn't have played over there and experienced the experience that I did have over there.
So Perak's one of the larger teams in Malaysia, and being a professional, there's a number of Aussies that made their way over to Malaysia to play in the same years that you were there. So if you could call out some of the Aussies that were there whilst you were there, not obviously all playing for your side, but playing for some of the other sides.
Yeah, look, prior to me going to Malaysia, there weren't too many.
Okay.
You had Abbassad, you had Alistair Edwards, who made a huge name for themselves. Craig Foster was in Singapore playing as well in that time, or playing in the Malaysian League. because Singapore were in the Malaysian League. So they were the three main players that were there, and Warren Spink was also another one that played there prior to me going there. But funny enough, Warren was playing for Perak the same year that I was playing for Perak. He came there the same year. Thank God, you know, because it was great having him on board. That's it.
Yeah, another character of the game. So
also the other players that were playing at Selangor was Joe Biskic,
yes,
David Mitchell, Mehmet Durakovic,
yes,
and then Alan Davidson,
yes,
was playing at Pahang the same year. And then a few others came later on. Gus Serro, Jose Uriarte, you know, these players came.
Jerry Gomez spent
Jerry Gomez came that year as well at Kelantan. So there was quite a few of us that came that year. So, yeah, I mean, you know, I remember boarding a flight in Sydney, and I met up with Warren Spink at the airport at Sydney because he came from Melbourne. And we're on the flight going to Malaysia. I knew nothing about Malaysia, didn't know anything about the football really, didn't know the culture. It was just like everything was just new to me. And we're meeting up with Michael Urukala, who was the coach,
yes,
for Perak. And I remember we're on the plane, and we got off the plane, and it was stinking hot. It was just humid. And I looked at Warren and I said, okay, Sid, it's a heat wave today. He said, what? He goes, mate, it's like this all the time. He goes, this is nothing. And I just went, how are we supposed to play in this heat? He just laughed at me. He just said, this is what you got to get used to.
Yes.
So, yeah, so it was good.
The humidity, just the sheer humidity. It's not just the heat. It's the moisture in the air. Hard to run in that humid heat. So how did you adapt? I mean, because we can have dry, hot summers here in Australia, but just the wetness of that region of the world. So did it take a little while to get acclimatized to the moisture, the humidity in the air?
Yeah, look, it took me a while actually, because the other thing was I wasn't used to the food as well.
Okay.
I'd have a lot of spicy food.
Yeah.
And I didn't like spicy food back then. So I had to get used to the food as well as the climate. So it was a tough, I think, probably 2 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a tough 2 months. And I remember Urukalo, you know, he's a hard trainer. He really got you fit. So I remember losing so much weight. I mean, it was like, I felt like a greyhound. It was like just no body fat. I was just so thin, and I was so fit and ready to go. It was good. So, but yeah, it took me a while to get used to it, but it was all right at the end. What
about the fans, the Perak fans? They're a very popular team. So they're very, very passionate. Talk to me about, I mean, we talk about that, you know, the 5,000, you know, Melbourne, Croatia or Sydney, Croatia supporters screaming, or 10,000. It feels like, you know, 20 or 30. But in Malaysia, you actually get 20 or 30,000 people, you know, coming to games, and they are just football mad. So was it intimidating playing for such a big club?
You know, it was funny because when we got there, they just built a new stadium. So, and I think it was holding about 20,000 people, 15,000 people. But that stadium was packed every time we played. It was packed, and the roar was deafening. It was just, yeah, they were fanatics, and you could just see them jumping up and down and carrying on. It was like unbelievable, and actually, it wasn't intimidating. It was motivating.
Motivating.
Yeah, it was. You just wanted to get out there and play. Everything you did well, you felt it. You know, you had the crowd on you, you know, supporting it. It was just, and you just wanted to do well. It was great. It was a great atmosphere. It was great to play football there. But yeah, and yeah, we had a great time. It was great that Warren Spink was there, another colleague from Australia.
Yeah,
he's a phenomenal player. I mean, to play with Warren was great.
Yeah. He's quality. He's just quality, but he's also a character outside of football, and not shy of a story or a laugh. Maybe you can tell us some of the exploits with you and Spinky in Malaysia.
Look, Warren would. There was the incident where we were in the dressing room, and the Malaysians, they have their little rituals that they do.
Yep.
Like I don't know, you could probably call it a witch doctor. He comes in and he gives you this water that you drink.
Really?
And Warren and I, we'd have a good laugh about it because I'd say, make sure you drink it. It's like you can't let these guys down. You've got to drink it.
Okay.
So it was, it was funny moments that we had. But I think one of the funniest moments with Warren was when he left. He left during the season.
All right.
Yeah. So I remember it was like probably 2/3 of the way into the season.
Yep.
Michael Uricalo just got sacked.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he just got sacked. And I remember Michael coming up and saying, look, a reporter's going to call you and can you say some, defend me in some way. And I said, yeah. I said, no, not a problem. So I got a call from a newspaper guy and I was telling them how, Michael was good. He's done nothing wrong. And I don't understand why he got sacked. Everything seemed to be fine, Well, that was a no-no in Malaysia. So I got a call up from the team manager, and they're run by politicians.
Yes.
Teams. So Raja Rahmat was his name, and he was a tough character. And he called me in and he said, luckily he liked me. He didn't let me talk. He said, I know you didn't say the things you said to the newspaper guy. Just forget about it. He said, just concentrate on your football. I know you didn't say those things. He said, now get out of here and go back and start training. And that was the end of that.
So he swept it under the carpet. But, yeah. I mean, why did Michael get the chop there? Was it political?
I don't know what the reason was. I heard later on it was the players.
Yeah, okay. He lost the dressing room.
Yeah, but we still played. We played well. We had, we played good football. We won games. We were one of the top teams. So really,
maybe it was just too hard. Or maybe they wanted somebody a little bit softer, right?
I think that's probably the thing that happened. Yeah, I mean they're very they're quiet people. The Malaysians, they're very, they don't like to be, yelled at or anything like that.
Yeah.
So they're very quiet people. But and the other thing was Warren just decided he had enough as well.
Okay.
And
he's pulled the pin. He's pulled the pin.
Yeah, because what was happening was we were playing games and we were a good side, and we were playing teams like Police, who were down the bottom of the table, and we were struggling. I remember one game we were playing against them, we were struggling, and Warren and I were playing up front. We weren't getting the ball, and Warren goes to me, I'm going to go back. You stay up front. I'll get you the ball, okay? So he's dropped down to the midfield. He's picked the ball up. He's put a through ball for me. I scored, and he and I were the only ones celebrating.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it was funny. It was kind of weird. And then I remember after they go on, he goes, you know what? I've had enough of this. I'm going to go, And then, so he left. I think he went straight to KO. He didn't tell anyone. And then everyone was looking for him, and it was in the papers. Where's Warren?
He's gone.
It was like, where's Warren? And I was getting hammered by everyone going, where is he? And I'm going,
where's your mate? Yeah, where's your other Aussie mate?
Yeah. It's a story in itself.
So interesting. So probably food for thought of any coach. It's not just about the football. When you go to another culture, you need to understand the cultural nuance of where you're going, and where a dressing down to an Aussie boy is sort of part and parcel of how we play. Maybe in certain cultures you can't do that, and you do it once, you do it twice, you do it 3 times, and then the dressing room says, nah, this guy's got to go. And it's the players or the coach. So interesting point. You also play at Singapore, so you spent some time in Singapore. How did that? I mean, the Singapore and Malaysia obviously very close to each other.
Yeah. Well, I ended up playing 2 seasons in Malaysia with Perak.
Yes.
So that was the first season. And I remember another thing that happened. At the end of that season, I get a phone call at 6 o'clock in the morning from one of the administrators from Perak.
Okay.
And he says, Joe, you still there? And I said, yeah. I said, where will I be? I thought maybe we had training on or something. said, yeah, why? What's wrong? And he said, well, the whole team's been taken in by the police.
What?
Yeah, the whole team has been taken in by the police, and apparently the whole team was match fixing.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why they weren't celebrating, because you boys were scoring goals where they were thrown in the game.
Yeah. So apparently they took in the whole team. It was just the police squads went in and raided all their houses, and everyone was taken in. It was just myself and the vice captain, who was a Chinese boy. And we were the only two that
you weren't part of it. You weren't part of it.
So
there you go.
And obviously Warren as well wasn't part of it. That's why he took off as well. So yeah. Wow. So the other foreigner, the Uzbekistanian, he got involved in it. Both goalkeepers, we had a reserve goalkeeper. Both keepers were tied in with it. So it was just unbelievable.
Okay, so this is now I remember this hit world news.
Yeah,
so you were there in that year.
Yeah.
Okay, so the team manager or somebody in administration's called you saying you there, expecting you're going to be locked up as well.
Yeah.
Right? But you've answered the phone going, yeah, I'm still here, right? Is this in the season proper or off season? When has anybody got pinched?
This was like I think we had one game to go.
Okay.
Yeah. It was like right at the end of the season.
So obviously the police must have had amassed enough evidence over a course of a number of weeks to have their case sewn up, right? So to take everybody in. What ended up happening with all those players?
I was told that they were all put in secluded areas. Okay. Like in villages, and that was it's like a home arrest sort of thing. They were on trawlers, fishing trawlers, working on fishing trawlers, things like that. They were in villages where they couldn't go anywhere, and they had to do that for I think it was 3 or 4 years, and they were totally banned from football.
Okay.
And the sad thing about that was the captain of the team was an unbelievable player. His name was Azizol. I mean, this guy could turn on a dime. He was technically gifted, an amazing player. He had a massive future in the sport, and he also captained the Malaysian team at one stage, national team. And to have someone like that, just now cannot even coach or be involved in football is just it's a real shame. It's just terrible.
So we're talking about what 15 or so boys got caught up in this.
Yeah. The whole team died too. Yeah.
Wow. And did the club know they were throwing games or have a suspicion?
Look, I don't know. I didn't get into it. I'm sure they had their suspicions, but that's it. And the following year, they've asked me to come back the following year.
Yeah.
And that's when Marshall Soper came and David Miller.
How was that?
Yeah, that was another experience. So yeah, that was great. And they rebuilt a whole new team, all youngsters. Yeah.
So having Marshall in the side with his experience, because he's another obviously, very, let's call him a loner or rogue, or Marshall's brilliant, but individually brilliant footballer, and also in his force, right? So you couldn't necessarily tell Marshall what to do. Marshall will tell you what he thinks, right? So. But fantastic footballer, one of the greatest strikers that we've ever produced. Yeah. So how was it like having him in the side?
Yeah, like you said, I mean, you pretty much unpacked it about him. That's exactly how he is. Like he was. It was great playing with Marshall. I mean, I used to watch him play back in the days at Olympic, and he was a bit older then, but he could play. He could still play. He was tough. He was, scoring goals still. It was
both feet. Doesn't matter if it's on his right or left. He's scoring both sides.
He was just scoring goals, and it was great playing with him as well. It was a great experience.
Yeah,
we had some good laughs. So it was good. It was good.
And what about what was it like now? You're playing against an Alan Davidson or Jerry Gomez or Joe Biskich in this, in those tussles. Is it okay? They're opponents just like any other, and you might say a word before the game. You might have a word after the game, but during the game, it's all fair in love and war.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, before the game, we never saw each other. It was always after the game.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty serious. We always wanted to win. Everyone wants to win. And you want to be in the team that's up the top.
Yep.
And you want to be the foreigner that's doing really well.
Yep.
So it was competitive amongst ourselves as well. Which was good competition. But then after the game, we'd get together, have a laugh.
Okay.
So it was really, really good. And it was great having all them there as well. It was great.
Yeah. So a really a nice time where Aussies could go abroad and make a buck by playing in a decent league and showing their wares and being really full-time professional footballers. I mean, that's something that, despite the quality of the NSL being fantastic, everybody pretty much was part-timers bar a few players.
Yeah.
You get this opportunity to be in Malaysia and you're a full-time professional. And so, and we said you spent, how long did you spend in Singapore? Was it a year?
It was a year in Singapore, yeah. Yeah.
And,
so I went to Woodlands Wellington. That was the club that I went to.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was their first season, the S League. So that was the first season of the S League. They were building it up. It was a lot of marketing behind it. And they had five foreign rule. So they wanted to make it even more interesting.
Yep.
So yeah, we had a really good side. We did really well in our first year. We had characters there, and we had one of the managers, Wenger. His name was Wenger. He was a real character, and so it was great times there. It was good times.
And so then you get a chance to come back to Australia and rejoin Sydney United again. So it's a third time. So either 3 strikes you're out or third time's a charm. Which one was it for you?
I think it was 3 times a charm.
Yep.
Because obviously I wanted to finish my career off. That's where I started. It's close to my heart. Sydney Croatia is a club that I, first felt the passion of football. And I wanted to finish off there. And we did really well. I mean, David Mitchell was coaching at the time.
Yep.
There was a lot of young boys in there, and there was a blend of older players.
Yep.
There was Ivan Petkovic was playing, Kuprishak, and then we had the young boys, Richie Plesher, Joey Vrkic, all those. Burnsy was playing with us. Yep. And we did really well. We ended up being minor premiers.
Yes.
And it was a good way to finish the career. But we lost in the grand final to South Melbourne,
yes,
which was unfortunate. But yeah, it was a great way to finish off, and especially with the club that I, close to my heart.
Yeah, the big tussle, obviously big side as well. So that game, you guys, it would have been a flip of the coin, but that South Melbourne side had quality, and probably the 2 best teams that year played in the grand final. Talk us about the lead up to that grand final game. What was the mentality going into that game?
Oh, look, the thing is, the boys took every game the same. They had the winning mentality, very positive. So there was no difference.
Okay.
So it was always the same approach, and I think that's and every game was like a final for us.
Okay.
The boys went out there, they fought hard. So yeah, it was just business as usual, so to speak. But I remember I didn't play that day in the grand final because I had a hamstring injury, and it was actually on my birthday as well. So it wasn't a very good birthday, but
yeah, you probably would have preferred being out there. So were you watching the game from the sideline?
I was in Melbourne. Yeah, I was in Melbourne at the game as well. Yeah.
So the what were your feelings watching that game? So when did you feel like it was in the balance, and when did you know that it was lost?
The game? Or,
yes, the game.
I think it was close up until was it Anastasiadis that came on?
Yeah,
Ended up scoring. Yeah, and once the goals came in, I think we were struggling then. So yeah, it was pretty much. It was tough after that. So.
And yeah, sort of. Whether it's second or second last, it's almost the same feeling. That despondency of losing a grand final, that would have been hard to take. Did you know then that it was done, or were you happy to kick on with the boots, or were you saying, okay, I've had enough?
Yeah, look, it was tough for me physically because I was breaking down a lot with my injury. Always had a reoccurring hamstring injury.
Okay.
So I knew that was going to be my final year, especially with the injuries that I was getting that year, especially towards the end of the year. So I knew it was going to be the final year of football for me at an elite level.
Yes.
So yeah, so it was it was unfortunate, but I was 34 or 35.
Yeah,
I was getting on. So
yeah, you've done enough in football to know when it's time to take a step away from the rigors of elite football. Especially when the body's breaking down, there's only so much that it can take. So looking back at your career, because you played at many countries, many clubs, where does your heart look most fondest to?
It'll have to be Melbourne Knights. The 3 years that I was there, by far was the best moments I had in football.
Okay.
I really, really enjoyed it, just with the atmosphere there, the boys that I met, I'm very close friends with all of them. So that was probably the best years.
And it probably started by being accepted literally into somebody's family, right? So coming in and then forming the friendships. So a lot of those boys like to drink after the game as well. So I'm sure you would have had a couple of nice away days after the game. Which coach was most lax about you boys having a couple of drinks after maybe an away game?
To be honest, a lot of the coaches didn't mind that we went out for a drink after the game. It's just tradition.
Yes.
So yeah, and the boys love to have their drink after the game. To be honest with you, Sasha, I never drank.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I never drank. I used to. I actually started drinking later on. Towards the end of my career, I started drinking.
Okay.
I had a drink, but prior to that, I didn't hardly drink. Yeah.
Okay. So when the boys would go out, what would you do? Stay in the hotel?
No, I'd be out. All right. I'd have a lemon squash or.
Okay. Yeah.
So, just didn't have the urge to drink.
Yeah.
So that was.
So obviously, football was your greater priority. So instead of. Yeah. Okay. No, that's good. And but I'm sure there would have been a nightclub or two that the boys graced their presence of in one of those away days, either Sydney or Brisbane or Adelaide. Close bonding with the lads.
Oh yeah, I mean we'd have some great times together, and obviously run amok, especially when you're playing in Perth or you're playing in Adelaide or Sydney, and it was always a good time. There's never a dull moment, So.
So you've gone on to continue your involvement in our game and coach. What would you say if you're talking to that 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old boy or girl, and what advice would you give them for them to get the most out of their football?
The main advice I'd give the boys, or is you'd really need to have a love for the game, and you'd have to be, your mindset would have to be, right. You'd have to be wanting to be a professional footballer, or wanting to succeed in the game and go far with it. They're the main things that you'd need to bring on board. So and just enjoy it, just enjoy it, which is really important.
And you've had a fantastic career. You played at the highest level, many clubs, scored lots of goals. I remember your blistering pace. You also quite, not to take this in the wrong way, but aggressive when you played. You played with vigour. Thank you very much for your contribution to Australian football and now world football. Interesting time, obviously, in Malaysia, in the midst of that scandal. What message do you have for the Australian football public?
Just enjoy the sport, keep enjoying the sport, and support it. It's a beautiful game, and there's a lot of beautiful people involved with it. So yeah, just keep supporting the game, and it's good to see that it's growing, which is fantastic, and it's good to see more kids playing out there as well, which is great.
Fantastic, wise words, Mr. Joe Caleta. Thank you very much for your contribution to Australian football and obviously your exploits overseas. It's been an honour, sir.
Thanks for having me, Sash. Thank you very much.
Hey guys, we've come to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to our wonderful guest. If you like this type of content and would like to see more, how about you hit the like and subscribe button, and have a fantastic day.